Hello guys, welcome back to another Android Studio tutorial. In this episode, here I am going to create a simple Android application that demonstrates how to use shared preferences for saving application settings. So we can create a new Android Studio project, open Android Studio and create a new Android Studio project. Specify your application name. Here I name it as shared preferences example. Select an empty activity. Click finish. Okay, now here the project is created in Android Studio and it is still building. Okay, now the build process finished. So this is the layout for main activity. Here is the class for main activity. Okay, so the first thing we have to create some user interface. So here I'm going to place a login form in activity main.xml. So I hope you already know about how to create a simple login form using Android Studio layout editor and coordinator layout. So for saving time, here I already create the layout. So I copy that content and put it here. So this is our layout. So this layout contains two edit text. So this is the edit text for enter username and this is the edit text for enter password, and here is our button. So here the button have an on-click method called login user. So now we need to specify this method inside main activity. So just click that method and hit Alt Enter on your keyboard, and here you can simply create that method inside main activity. So here Android Studio automatically create that method for us. Okay. So this is a simple user login form. So now I close this activity, close all these contents. Now here I'm going to create another activity. So create a new activity. Select empty activity. Specify the new activity name. I name it as success activity and click finish. Now we need to add something to the success activity. So this is the root. Here is also the root element is a constrained layout. So now we have to design the layout. So now open blueprint. Okay, first here I'm going to put some text on it. So select the text, drag a text view. Now create the attributes for the text view. Now select the text view and change the margin at the top into 55 dp. Okay, now select the text view and change the text on it. Welcome user. Okay, and align the text at the center, change that one into bold. Now I'm going to change the text size into 20 dp, 20 sp. Okay, so now here I'm going to add one more component. I need a button in this activity. Drag a button, create the attributes for the button. So it is not attribute, it is coordinates. Sorry, constraints, not coordinates, it's constraints. So now select the button, change the margin at the top into 32 dp. Now select the button and change the text on it into logout. So by using this button, user can log out. Okay, now here I'm going to create an on-click method for the button. user logout. Okay, so this is our layout. Now we can move it to the design. So this is the layout. Now go to the XML. So here also we need to specify, we have to define this method inside success activity. So select that method using this keyword, using this shortcut Alt Enter, you can directly create that method inside that activity. So here we create that method inside the success activity. Okay, so now we need some string resources. So open resource folder, open values folder, open strings.xml. So here I'm going to create some string values. Specify some username here. So here the username is Thomas. Now specify the password for the user. User password into Thomas at 123. Okay, so now we need to add some other string resources. I name it as login preference. So this is the file name of our shared preference. I name it as login preference. So for make the file name unique, it is better to use the package name of your app. So here is the package name. I copy the package name. I use that package name and specify the file name, login preference. So this is a good programming practice because this make your file name unique one. So now I create another string resource, login status preference. Now again I use the package name and here use the data login status preference. Okay, now we can close these things. Now here I am going to create another Java class. I name it as shared preference config. Now click OK. So here first create some variables. For shared preference. Now create some variables for context. Now create a constructor for this class. And this constructor needs one parameter, is a context object. Now initialize the context object from here. Sorry, here the class name is shared preference config. Okay, so now I'm going to initialize the shared preference object from here. So by using the context object, call the method get shared preferences. So the first parameter is the key, is the file name. So here the file name we saved inside strings.xml. So context.get resources and use this method get string. Specify the file name. Here it is, login preferences. Now specify the opening mode. Here we are going to open this one in mode private. Okay, so in the constructor we initialize the two variables, context and the shared preferences. Now here I'm going to create another methods for read and write login status. So create a method, public void write login status. So this method contains one parameter, it's a boolean value. So for write into shared preferences, you have to create an editor object. So create some editor object. So you can use the shared preference object. For initialize that object, call the edit method. So now we need to put the key values into the editor object. So editor dot, here the data is a boolean, so we can use this one, put boolean. So the first parameter is the key for the data. Here also we have to get the key from the strings.xml. Get string dot string. Here it is login preference, not login status preference. Now specify the data. Here the data is status. To save the changes, you have to call the commit method on the editor object. So this method write the login status to the shared preference. Now we need to create another method for read the login status. So here the return type is a boolean. Here I name it as read login status. So here create some variables, boolean, I name it as status, into false. Now we can get the status from the shared preference. So you can use this, the object of shared preference. So here the data is a boolean, so call this method get boolean. So the first parameter is the key for the data. Get string dot string dot login status preference, and final parameter is the default value. If the key is not found, it will return the default value. So here the default value we can return false. Okay, and finally we can return false from this method, sorry, status from this method, return status. So this class handle the shared preferences operations. Now we can perform the user login. So close this file, open main activity. So inside main activity, first create some variables. Shared preferences config. I name it as preferences config. Now create some variables for edit text, username and user password. Okay, now we can initialize these variables from the onCreate method. So first we can initialize the shared preference config object. So here I pass the context as get application context. Okay, now we can initialize the edit text, username, find the view by ID. Here it is username, user password, also the same thing, find the view by ID, user password. Okay. So if the user click the login if the user click the login button, we have to get the data from the edit text. Username, username dot get the text dot to string. Now get the password, user password dot get the data from it, get the text dot to string. Okay, now we can check whether the login success or not. So if username dot equals get resources dot get string r dot string dot username and user password dot equals get resources dot get string r dot string dot user password. In that case, you login success. So if the login success, we can start the success activity. So start activity, new indent, success activity dot class. Otherwise, that means login failed. In that case, simply display a message to the user. Login failed, try again. Be short and display the cost. Okay. Also, if the login failed, we can reset the username and password. Set a text. User password dot set a text. Okay, so if the login success, we have to save the login status in shared preference. So call the shared preference object preference config dot write login status. So here the status is true. Okay. So if the user open this application, first thing we have to check whether user already login or not. So here we have to check that condition. If, sorry, it is not from this method, we need to perform that from the onCreate method. So inside onCreate method, here we are going to perform a check whether the user already login or not. So if preference config dot read login status. So if it is returned true, that means user already login. In that case, we can simply start the success activity. So I copy this statement and place it here. So if the user login already, it will start the new activity. So now go back to the welcome activity. Now open success activity. Sorry, it is success activity. So here also we have to create some variables. Shared preference config, I name it as preference config. Okay, now initialize that variable. So preference config equal to new shared preference config, get application context. So we forget something in main activity. So if the user already login, after starting the second activity, we have to finish this activity. Here also, if the login success, we have to finish this activity. So finish that one. Okay, now go back to success activity. So if the user logout, we have to update the login status in shared preference. So preference config dot write login status into false. So now start activity, we have to start the login activity again. New intent. So we have to start the main activity again and finish this activity. Okay, so now we finish the application development. Now we can start this. Now we can test it. So here we already have a virtual device, so run it. Okay, now here the application available on this virtual device. So first here I enter some wrong information and try to login. So now here login failed. Now enter the correct username. Here the username is Thomas and password Thomas123, Thomas at 123. That is the correct password, and login. So now the user is successfully login. So now I remove the application from foreground. Now the application is not running in this device. Now I open that application again. So here instead of display the login page again, it will display the success page. So now the user log out. So in that case, the app again display the login page. So now try to login again. Thomas at 123 and try to login. Now remove the application from foreground. Now open that app again. So instead of display the login page, it opened the success page. So this is how we use the shared preference for saving relatively small amount of data. I hope you understand the concepts about how to save data using shared preferences. For getting more video updates, please subscribe this channel now. Thank you for watching. See you in the next episode.